Dawn with your hosts, Jimmy Thompson and Donato Bucci. They're covering the most current issues in sports from the 305 to the 412 and all the way to the West Coast. You can follow them on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at JT and the Dawn or email them at jtandthedawn@gmail.com. Now take it away, guys.
Give them a shot to do what?
Welcome to the next episode of JT and the Dawn, presented by Give Us a Shot Network. I am the Dawn, Donato Bucci, and remember to subscribe to us. We can be found on all of the major platforms, and remember to leave us a 5-star review, and remember to subscribe to the Give Us a Shot Network YouTube channel. Thank you to Nicole Thompson for the wonderful introduction, as always, and to our guy, Mike Regina, with the JT and the Dawn pump up music. Always gets me fired up. We have some basketball to cover. We've got some baseball in there and some other stuff. So let me welcome in everyone's favorite JT, Jimmy Thompson. How you feeling today?
Good, man. I was on time. You were late. So that's a normal occurrence. I'm not too upset. But I will say this, man. After last year, when our Canes were destroyed in the Final Four, I never thought I'd love college basketball this much again. And here we are a year later talking about it. It's exciting, right?
It absolutely is. Absolutely is. And we're going to start the show with it. But first, again, I gotta correct you on some things. I was in the studio first, as always. I'm first in, last out.
All right,
as
we're
always
not
in the studio.
We're not doing this. We're not doing
You know
this.
the truth.
You know you're always late.
Don't
You're
lie.
always late. Always late.
I was here first. I was
like I said, man, last year Canes got destroyed. I was heartbroken. I never wanted to watch another college basketball game again. Fast forward a year later, man, what an exciting time to watch college basketball. So we got to start off with the Final Four. So college basketball season is obviously over. South Carolina being the champion on the women's side, and UConn winning again for the men's. But I want to start with this. Just overall, was this the best tournament, women's or men's, that you've seen in the last decade?
No, not for either. Not for either, to be honest. So let me first start with on the women's side, because that was definitely the more exciting of the two. So let me start with that. I think last year's tournament was even better, and I'll tell you, and I'll tell you why. We were introduced to.
I know why, because you were there.
No, we weren't there. I'm saying the women's tournament.
You should have been there. Yes,
the women's tournament. I thought last year was better than this year's, and I'll tell you why. Caitlin Clark, Angel Reese, we were introduced to them because I think a lot of people didn't watch the regular season last year, and because of what happened in the tournament, particularly the Final Four with Iowa, South Carolina, and then Iowa, LSU, that allowed more people to watch the regular season this year in women's hoops. And then on top of that, the tournament. And that's really where the rivalry came from, especially the Angel Reese, Caitlin Clark rivalry, where they matched up in the Elite Eight this year. So last year led up to the Elite Eight in the hype this year. And then last year, a lot of people were talking about the gestures, right, by Caitlin Clark first to South Carolina, and exactly, and then Angel Reese to Caitlin Clark.
You don't even know what this is.
You had a lot of stuff going on.
What did they call this? What's this?
I don't know. Can't see you.
The fact that you're calling it a gesture tells me everything I need to know. Come on, man.
Can't see me.
I get what you're saying. Like last year, I think last year had more shock value because it was newer. Like everything was fresh. Like what you said with Reese, Clark, things like that. So you're going with last year, even though the national championship game for the women's ended in like a 20-point blowout?
I mean, was that not the case last year too? I mean, that was the case last year too. I mean, it was. And then you look at some of these other tournaments in the men's the last couple of years, like I think it was 2018, 2021, I can't remember now, but you had a lot of weekend upsets. The year that UVA went, the Gonzaga year where Jalen Suggs, I think, hit that shot, like all of that. So this men's tournament compared to the last decade of men's tournaments, the men's tournament this year doesn't come close to those last couple. Like I said, that Jalen Suggs Final Four, and then Gonzaga loses in the finals. I think who they lose to, Baylor maybe. Like that was crazy. Gonzaga undefeated. Like that had so much going on that this year's can't compete with it.
I gotta disagree with you, man. I took this question as combined. Like, was the men's lagging this year a little bit? Yeah, but I mean, let's not act like last year's was that much better either. Yeah, we were in it, the Canes, but I mean, that probably drug down the value of the tournament by having us in the Final Four. That let you know everything you needed to know about last year. But I would say combined, yeah, just because look at all the games from, I would say, like the Elite Eight on for the women's and in specific, the national championship game for the men's. Like, we had a superstar matchup with the two biggest guys in college basketball, and then Elite Eight on from the women's was just basically all the star players. And it's evident by the viewership numbers. Like all the Elite Eight games and on to the championship game for the women's, they're like some of the most watched non-football telecasts ever. Like, yeah, like I do think this is on both sides probably the best tournament that I've seen probably the last decade. It's just
you're saying both combined.
Both combined, yeah.
For you, I'll push back because again, I think the men's with the women's tournament, yes, but the men's tournament brought it down because you go look at last year, JT, you still had UConn in it. You had some of those true Cinderella teams in it. And this year, you had UNC go out to Alabama. Ain't nobody want to see Alabama basketball.
UNC hasn't been the same since the boys split up.
But no one.
I get what you're saying, but I feel like
you gotta have some true blue bloods in there. Kansas, Kentucky, UNC. They were all gone. They were all gone even before the Elite Eight. That is not enough. That is not enough.
I disagree, man. I feel like, look, this was the best. You watched every game, no matter what. Like on both sides.
We do that. Well, okay, that is true on both sides. But I mean, like last year was very similar.
All right, so since this tournament sucked to him,
no one said that.
So the tournament wasn't shit. Those ones in the past were better because none of his blue bloods made it. His Paisan Calipari didn't do anything, and Jay Wright's retired, so that's why you weren't impressed with this tournament. Despite how bad this tournament was, what was your favorite moment?
Okay, this is why I call you Jimmy Drama. There nothing came out of my mouth that said this tournament was so bad. No one said it was bad. All right, my favorite moment, I'll look at both. I'll go the men's side. It's Jack Golke. I mean, 10 threes. He did it in Pittsburgh, 32 points. And that really was the start of Coach Cal out of Kentucky. So I think that's why it's going to be such a memorable moment was that particular one. And then on the women's side is just how many people watched. Like you said, I mean, it broke TV ratings literally every game. Every next game, it seemed like it was breaking records. And then also with the women's tournament, the memory of that excitement, anticipation before the game. It almost felt like a Super Bowl going into each of those games, right? Just that buildup. I think that was my favorite moment of just having that experience and anticipation going into the LSU Iowa game. You know, you waited around all day on a Monday, and then the Final Four games on a Friday night, like just that anticipation.
Oh, this is easy for me, man. It's the LSU Iowa rematch. I mean, everybody was not only just waiting for that game, like you were locked in. We were sitting down, we were watching that game. And I think for me, so for those of you who don't know, Don and I went to the Final Four last year to watch the Canes get destroyed. And because the Canes lost so early, we were distraught for 2 days, and we should have driven up to Dallas to see the LSU Iowa championship. And we ended up probably missing the best college basketball game of the year. So I was not going to miss this one because my Canes weren't in it, so I didn't have an excuse. Just the buildup and anticipation of that game and then seeing the intensity play out in that game. I mean, I was stressed, and I wasn't even playing. I was stressed for the coaches. I was stressed for the players because each of those teams and players had so much to lose in game by winning and losing that game. So I just felt like it was revenge from last year. You could just tell Iowa was determined to get revenge. And I think that was probably one of the best basketball games I've watched probably the past 2 years. And it was just, that was the best moment for me, like that game. And it made up sort of for us not going to watch that game live last year.
Nothing will ever make up for that.
Hey, I'm trying to make myself feel better.
You can try, but it won't help.
But speaking of Iowa, so let's go to Caitlin Clark. So, of course, she broke the all-time scoring record this past season. And there's that conversation. Is she the best women's college basketball player of all time? You know, I'm really interested to see where you're going with this.
You know, these are the type of questions I just don't like because no matter how
good. He's not going to call this a JT question.
No matter how we answer, no, it's not a JT question because this is actual fact that people are talking about.
It's actually things that people are talking about.
Yeah, this one
like
actually.
Every other question I throw in this damn show.
Not true. But I don't like these sort of questions because no matter how you answer it, it's almost like you're going to slight somebody, right? If you say no, she's not, you're slighting her. If you say yes, you're slighting every other player that's ever played. So
that's a yes or no question.
I don't like it.
You're going to say no. So you're going to slight Caitlin Clark?
No. So my answer is no because I think it still is Cheryl Miller. And these are some of the reasons why. 3-time player of the year, 2-time champ. But I think more importantly, two things.
More importantly, 100 points in the high school basketball game.
Hold on. No. You said women's college basketball.
I get it. I'm just adding on to her resume. She could beat Reggie Miller, her brother.
I had that too. But USC, I think she's still the all-time leader in like points, rebounds, games played. And you forget who played there. Lisa Leslie. So Lisa Leslie is only the all-time leader in blocks there. And then the second thing that I think puts her over the top, and this is the way you know how I do, how great of a player is, who's the best of all time. If I had to start a college basketball team from scratch, not knowing who else I'd have on my team, okay, who am I taking number 1 overall? And it would be Cheryl Miller because she could play back then. I believe she could play now. She would either develop her game that maybe she didn't have that would relate to nowadays game, meaning the 3-point shot, or she wouldn't even have to do anything different and she'd be instantly able to play in nowadays women's college basketball. So that's why I put Cheryl Miller over Caitlin Clark. But again, that's no disrespect to Caitlin Clark. It's just a compliment to Cheryl Miller.
Yeah, no disrespect to her. I mean, I agree with you on the Cheryl Miller. I mean, there's other people that are above her too. Like we could even go say somebody like Maya Moore or Candace Parker. Like we forgetting about the impact those women had on the game. At least Leslie's another GOAT.
I mean, you look at Tarazi, Breonna Stewart.
There's so many.
There's so many.
To me, I agree. I don't think she's the best women's college basketball player of all time. It's not even close. Then the first thing is because she has no rings. Like, think about it. Every sports debate that you have, when you're talking about greatest of all time in any field, you got to win something. It's true.
I disagree, but
no, it's not.
You're correct.
Imagine if LeBron James had no rings. Him and the Jordan conversation would not exist.
I understand what you're saying.
It's true.
It is true. I'm saying I disagree with that thought, though.
Okay, so I'll give you an example. To me, what's the difference between Caitlin Clark? To me, I look at. I'm not disrespecting her, not taking away her impact on the game. Obviously, she's brought a lot more eyes to the sport. What she did is insane. You know, we've never seen a person that could pull it from 30 in the women's game, and then also like her vision as a passer is so underrated. Like, I mean, she's Pistol Pete of the women's game, so I get it. But what's the difference between her and Allen Iverson? Like, same type of player, amazing, unique talent set. Never won a championship, can score at will, undersized, but just could not get it done. Like, that's the same person. Like, would you put AI as the best basketball player of all time? No. Why? Because he don't have everything it takes to be in the GOAT conversation. It's true. It is absolutely true.
Well, you can believe that. I disagree with that because there's two differences.
You said she's not the best ever.
JT, there's two differences that Caitlin Clark is literally the all-time scorer in college hoops. Like, no offense to
Okay.
Allen Iverson, he's not on that scoring list in
But
the
she
NBA.
but she hasn't. But the thing is, why she's not the GOAT is okay. She just scored the most, but she hasn't won anything.
But
She hasn't won anything.
Let's be true to ourselves though in making these arguments. South Carolina's a hell of a team, maybe one of the best ever all time. And then you look at that LSU team last year, clearly better than Iowa's team. I think the fact is just like when Allen Iverson got
so Allen Iverson, when he took the 76ers to play against the Lakers in the finals.
Again, this is my whole point. I was getting to that. What Allen Iverson did, and to even win a game against that Lakers team that hadn't lost the whole playoffs, that is amazing what he did. That is what catapulted him from being a star to a superstar. Now, when we're talking all-time greats, let's be honest. There's probably at least 10 other guys in the history of the NBA that are better than Iverson. Has nothing to do with a ring or not.
And there's at least 5 or 6 other women in the women's game, just college hoops, that are better and accomplished more than Caitlin Clark. And it's no shot at Caitlin Clark. I get it. You're
talking maybe team awards, sure, but she's still the all-time leading scorer.
So, but you don't think she's the best all time?
No, but I'm saying your argument of the lack of rings to be the major factor, that's false to me.
I disagree with that, man.
Well, that's fine. Are you let me ask you this. Are you taking Dan Marino or John Elway if you had to pick a quarterback?
What's the team?
It doesn't matter. That's my point.
Because I feel like that's a win-win. I probably would take Dan Marino.
Okay,
he's not any less talented than John Elway. John Elway just played for a situation where he got fortunate to win.
And I don't think anyone would be upset if you ended up with Dawn Staley as a player compared to Caitlin Clark as a player.
So you taking Cheryl Miller or Caitlin Clark?
I already answered.
If we're starting the team from scratch,
I told you I'm starting Cheryl
Maya
Miller.
Moore, Caitlin Clark.
I don't know. Then I'd really have to think about it. Probably Caitlin Clark.
No. Brittany Griner or Caitlin Clark?
Again, it depends what you want out of your team.
Man,
nowadays,
give me BG and I got a ring.
Nowadays, it'd be
Clark. You take Caitlin Clark, I'll take Brittany Griner. I'll send you a postcard from the championship as we cut down the nets.
And let me tell you this. I can go get a center that can play defense. They don't need to score. Caitlin Clark's going to score 40 points.
How'd that work out for Iowa?
Look how it worked out for Purdue. They could not shoot. You can have a 7-foot guy in the middle. It doesn't matter. You can have a 7-footer in the middle. It doesn't matter.
But I think we both agree we're giving her flowers. One of the most exciting to ever do it, but we don't think she's the best women's player of all time. But one thing that has been, a constant theme in the media, I feel like the past couple of weeks, is it seems like Caitlin Clark has a lack of support from the WNBA vets and like former greats. Like you see like Taurasi's being called a hater. I think they were asking Breanna Stewart, hey, do you think she's the greatest of all time? And they're kind of echoing some points that we're talking about now. Do you think that Caitlin Clark, does she actually have a real lack of support from WNBA vets? And if yes, why is that?
Well, I don't know if it's like league wide, but obviously it seems like there are some WNBA players that have been out in the public that are questioning her ability to translate what she is doing productivity wise and success wise to the WNBA. I don't think there's any way to object to that because we've seen it. We've heard it from WNBA players. Now, is it a league wide thing? I highly doubt it because I think she's still respected. I just think the reason why is I think it's just like anything. Everyone's competitive, bro. Like everyone is competitive. They never want to admit that next person's better than them, especially when it comes to sports. And, just like anything, the older generation, and let's face it at this point, Taurasi's, Sue Bird, they're the older generation now. Caitlin Clark's the newer, younger generation. And guess what? They don't want to pass over that mantle yet. They don't want to do that yet. So I think that's why it's maybe not them being like salty. It's just that's that competitiveness in them to say, all right, this person's having all that success. Wait until they play us. Wait until they come to the NBA.
We're going to show you something. Real.
Yeah, I've been here 10 years. All right, it's not that easy. So
I agree with you. I do think it's like the old players hating on the young players getting all the attention. But I also think it's a little bit of jealousy that they look at her and the way she's able to play her game at Iowa, and they're like, damn, playing for Gino at UConn. I could never do this. I could never pull up from 30. I could never take 30 to 40 shots a game and be 8 for 25 from 3-point. Like, I would never be able to do those things, but that's not saying they physically couldn't do it. Like, I think some of them are like, it's like, oh man, if I could go back and play in high school, I'd be dominating. If I could do this X, Y, and Z. I think some of these players would have loved to go back and play as loose and with the green light that Clayton Clark has at Iowa. Like, can you imagine if like Taurasi and some of those UConn great players were like, could just pull up from anywhere and take all the shots, not playing, that Gino or Coach K Duke system where, everybody got to pass the ball, triangle, be born, get the Dons involved on the 3-point line. Like, it would probably be more fun for them. But the trade-off is you're in the record books. Right. You're a champion forever. Like, your teams are talked about as one of the most dominant of all time.
I think Breanna Stewart's a four-time
straight,
most outstanding player of the Final Four. That's crazy. I mean,
that's another person that's
amazing.
Over Caitlin Clark.
That's amazing.
But I think it's that. But also, I think it's she has not accomplished the ultimate goal in college basketball, and they have. And she seems to be, her future seems to be brighter. And I think that's the biggest thing. Like all that time that UConn was winning and dominating, and we were seeing these great, amazing players come through there. I never seen like the Globetrotters or some side basketball league be like, hey, look, hey, you're so popular, like we'll offer you this $5 million to come play. And like Caitlin Clark has no rings, and Ice Cube's offering her $5 million bucks to play
because
in the Big Three.
Because
I understand why he has the vision, but I understand why they're hating. It's like we've grinded our asses off and played hard and won all this stuff, and we're making the WNBA minimum vet salary while you're getting millions of dollars.
But JT, is very short-sighted if it's just because of that. Because if she comes in and doesn't have success, guess what happens? It hurts the whole league. Including those players. If she comes in and is on fire, every place she goes is sold out. You know what that does? Increases merchandise, increases ticket sales, increases eventually the television revenue.
And that
benefits everybody. That benefits all the players, even the Breanna Stewarts, even every player that's in the WNBA. They should want her to succeed because it's gonna put more money in their pockets and make it better. And it just seems like they're knocking her a little bit. I just think it's that older generation mentality. Like, nah, you got to come in here and do it against us.
And they know what they're doing. I saw this Twitter post the other day where Taurasi's team has already got like the game marked on the calendar, assuming that Caitlin Clark goes number one. It's like the rook versus the vet, so that they're already ready for her to come into the league and eat.
And that's fine. That's what I like, right? Because why did we watch Iowa LSU? It was that competition that we knew this is going to be the elite of the elite. And I like how they have
let's be honest. Like Caitlin Clark is giving the women's game something for not us in particular, but like those fans that are like, oh, women's basketball is so boring. Now they can see, this person pulling up like Steph Curry. Like, that's exciting. So I get why women's basketball as a whole is centering around her, because her skill set is something that women don't do, and it's exciting, and it translates to male viewers, but it's also something you can develop going forward in younger players. Like, I mean, I'm pretty sure there's a bunch of girls that can pull up from 30 and make some shots. So I think they're doing a test run to see like, hey, can this skill set translate to the league? And if it does, I think you're going to see it a lot in women's college basketball.
Yeah,
so
it could change the landscape.
There's a lot riding on her success.
It could change the landscape of it. Yep.
Yeah. So we got to talk about the winners because, of course, nobody else is going to talk about them, so we have to. So let's focus on the champs. South Carolina, my girl, Dawn Staley, love her to death. But there's a narrative out there.
You talk about a dapper Dawn, right? They used to call John Gotti that. She's out with the Louis Vuitton stuff. That's the new dapper Dawn.
I'm telling you right now.
Her name fits perfect. Dawn Staley we should trademark that. Let's get on her marketing team.
You should, but you always saying like, oh, like I got money and stuff. I tell you what, if I had as much money as you claim I had, there'd be signs. One of the signs would be I'd be dressing as clean as Dawn Staley. So that's facts. But South Carolina champs, and there's now this narrative out there that they're not getting as much attention from the media as they should. Did the media do a disservice to South Carolina as champs with the lack of coverage on the team overall?
You know, that's a good question. I think we probably don't know outside of like Cardoso. Maybe we don't know some of their other players as well.
You mean those freshmen
as we
that were contributing? Because
exactly.
you know, the South Carolina team was stacked, but they also had freshmen. You know, they played nine deep basically all season. So those freshmen definitely stepped up in big time moments.
Yeah. I mean, probably a little bit of a disservice. Sure. I mean, when you're the champ, you should get all the limelight. You should get all the glory and all the glamour in terms of the two teams. Because as they say, no one remembers the losing team. But in this case, we'll probably remember that LSU beat Iowa and South Carolina beat Iowa, which is kind of funny. It's almost backwards. So yeah, I would say there was a little bit of disservice, but indirectly though, they got then coverage just through indirectly by playing Iowa, right? And in a way, wasn't South Carolina, I either wanted to see in the final South Carolina LSU because of that heated rivalry, or South Carolina Iowa, because you knew, all right, you got probably the best player in college basketball right now going against the best team in college basketball. So as long as it was South Carolina and one of those two other teams, we were going to be okay. So South Carolina, I still think got to enjoy that media presence, but it may have been partly because of who they were playing, which is a little unfair to them because they won the title 2 years ago. And we forget how Dawn Staley had to rebuild this team with all those freshmen.
I think 100% they did a disservice. The first thing was, we talked about this, like we knew this wasn't true, but at one point I forgot South Carolina was still in the damn tournament because
now you're stretching it because
it's true.
No, because they said in the men's tournament it was the UConn tournament, in the women's tournament it was basically the South Carolina Invitational. So
it was that might have been true, but I forgot they were in the tournament at one point. I was like, when LSU and Iowa faced off, I was like, damn, we're already back to the Final Four. I was like, no, this is Elite Eight. I forgot there's a whole other side of this bracket, and South Carolina's over there killing people. And it's because, and I get why, all the focus is on Clark and LSU. And we forget LSU didn't even have a really good season this year compared to what they did the year before. And I think they even had more coverage than South Carolina. And I think South Carolina kind of fell into that UConn mode where it's like, they're so good and so dominant that they almost become boring. Because like UConn does all these great things, but them being so dominant like that almost made women's basketball so boring for that stretch because you knew they were going to win it. But I do think the media did them a disservice. And I think also once they won in the manner in which they did, because Caitlin Clark went off for that first quarter, and then after that they put the clamps on her, and she basically, she basically was non-existent in my opinion. But at that point, like, I want to know is because all the media like CNN online were like, Iowa loses to juggernaut South Carolina, and they're showing the Iowa pictures. It's like, okay, they lost to a juggernaut. I want to see who the damn juggernaut is. Like, I know Dawn Staley because that's my girl, but most people don't even know what the South Carolina players look like. And I think that's the problem. Like, I know what every one of the Iowa players looks like, and they probably play only 5 or 6 girls, and they didn't win. Wow. So, like, I want them to highlight the winners because that's what you do in any sport. Highlight the winners. Like, we should be talking about those freshmen. Cardoso, we should be talking about all those people. Dawn should be on everything, every post that's about women's college basketball. And like, I feel they did a disservice. And I feel like, is it because they're trying to milk that last little gold out of Caitlin Clark in Iowa to get clicks? Or is it something more sinister that maybe we should be talking about on the next show? Where it's like, hey, they don't want to give this predominantly Black women's team their shine and put them out facing the media, which I do also believe is a part of it. But yeah, absolutely, it did a disservice in covering them. Like, the fact that we don't know that this team went undefeated and beat the best college basketball player in the women's game of all time easily, and we don't know what any of their players looks like, that's a disservice to me.
Yeah, no, that's true. I agree.
All right, so we got to talk about my girl Dawn Staley. Love her to death.
Dapper Dawn, call her by her real name.
Love Dawn Staley. This kind of goes along with that question about lack of media coverage, but is Dawn Staley's all-time greatness being a little underrated?
I'll tell you what, if anyone's underrating it, you a fool. I mean, I don't know what else to say. If what's that?
3? That's what I'm saying. I don't understand how she wasn't
if someone is underrating her, then they, they're not paying attention. They're not paying attention. Now, I think part of it, JT, let's take a bigger picture of it, is that when you've got two people like Pat Summitt and Gino Auriemma, like if you want to be put in that stratosphere, you've got to now do it. And she's getting to that point, but you've got to do it double-digit years. So I'll give a little bit benefit, but in terms of being underrated, she should not be underrated. Now, if we're talking all-time greats, she's still going to be behind Gino and Pat Summitt, but it doesn't mean she can't pass them. But if she's being underrated right now, then that's just I don't know what people are thinking.
I feel like she is, man. And to push back on your argument, I get it. Pat Summitt and Gino are just like goats. Like, it's hard because they were in the name of the game is longevity with them. Like they've been they were at those positions for so long. Gino's still there, so. But I disagree because I call bullshit because we just saw what were they saying? UConn's men's won Monday night. Your boy Hurley, I know it's your favorite person in the whole world. They start throwing out those big name, all-time names like, you're up there with the Coach K's and all these. The only person they didn't put him up there was Wooden, and that's obviously why. But he only got two.
It's
back to back. Dawn got three. Three. And I feel like three championships. And it's not like she had to wait 15 years to get them. Like three championships. I don't care who you are. Like your face needs to be pushed out there. Like you might not be the GOAT, but we need to be talking about like, hey, like, all right, you're in that conversation of now how much longer until you start catching some of these other people that we consider untouchable.
That was my point. Right. That was my point.
Yeah, I definitely think. But nobody's talking about it. Like they just brushing off the fact that this is her third championship as a coach. Yeah. That I hear more about Kim Mulkey than I do about Dawn Staley as a coach, and I feel like that's media disservice right there.
For sure. No, we both agree there. I mean, for sure. If anyone's underrating, Dawn Staley, then
you're a fool. Like you said.
You're a fool.
All right, let's roll through this shit real quick because I do not want to talk about this. All right. Men's game. Don said it was the most boring shit of all time. All right. UConn became the first men's team to win back-to-back championships since the 06-07 Florida Gators. Loaded team, by the way. Is UConn officially a dynasty?
Yes, because of the definition changes from pro teams to colleges, right? I mean, in colleges, you really only have like truly nowadays in college basketball, 2-year window maybe. For some, it's a 1-year window. So the fact that you can go back to back, and when you look, JT, I think in the past 33 years, this is only the third team to win back to back. I think it was Duke 91-92, then the Florida team that you mentioned, and then UConn. If I'm mistaken, I'm pretty sure there's been no other back to backs. That's one.
It's hard.
It's
hard in a single elimination tournament to do that.
Yeah. So when you talk about dynasty, my definition changes for college teams. So you go back to back, and some of the key pieces were still there. Klingon, I know Hawkins had left, but they also had, I think Newton was still there from last year. The coach is still there. The whole staff is still there. Like, this is a dynasty. I think there's no doubt at this point that winning back to back, in my opinion, for college hoops, puts you in a dynasty. Just like South Carolina, in a way, winning 2 and 3 years. You could pretty much say that's a dynasty. Now, I know that the roster turned over, so maybe there's pushback there. But, man, you win 2 and 3 years or back-to-back in college nowadays, even in football. To me, that's pretty much a dynasty.
I mean, I think we throwing that word around a little too loosely. But, I mean –
JT, listen to this. Listen to this. They won every game by more than 13 points, including like last year too. It's something ridiculous. I mean, come on.
It doesn't hurt when one of those games is against the Hurricanes. So I get it, but to me, it doesn't matter. I'm going to say this. I think this could be a start of the dynasty, just because I think what UConn is doing is more extraordinary than trying to put them in the dynasty category so early. I mean, you forget they weren't making the tournament like 3 years ago, like 3-4 years ago, and he was like, "Hey, catch us now, because once we get to where we're going." And ever since he made that comment, like they just been unstoppable, and you see it building. And it's not like they're Duke and they're getting all these 5 stars. He's getting guys that can play, that buy into what he's doing. So you add that with, we're in the NIL era, the one and done era, guys not even going to college, bypassing college, go to the G League era. And I think back to back, even though I think the level of competition they've played to get it done is not as strong as some of these other teams that have won back to backs. Like that Florida team went through a gauntlet to win those 2 championships. And Duke, they were playing really good teams too. Like they played us and it's like San Diego State FAU type teams. And like Purdue was probably like the best team they've played in the past 2 years in the tournament. So
But that's the thing. They smoked them, JT. It wasn't even a game.
I get it, but I just don't think the level of competition in their 2-year win window is as strong. But I will say this: you're right. Back to back, the way they're smoking these teams is impressive. And 2 in a row, only 3 programs have ever done that. So I don't want to say it because I hate this team, but maybe it is dynasty light. I'll give it dynasty light. I'm not willing to call it a dynasty yet.
It's a dynasty. Admit it.
Everything's a damn dynasty.
That's
all right.
true.
So let's talk about your favorite person on the planet, Danny Hurley.
Who said that?
You love this guy. Is he staying long term, or will he go to the NBA in the next 3 years?
You mean stay long term at UConn or in the college?
UConn, yeah.
Yeah, I think he'll stay long term in UConn because think about this: if Kentucky can't hire him away right now, who's ever going to have enough money to take him away? If Kentucky basketball doesn't have enough money to go get him, whoever could. So he'll stay there. And I don't think he necessarily wants to coach. I obviously don't know the guy, but I feel like his style in the way he likes to be the show. He's a college coach. He's a college coach. He loves to be the show. It's about Danny Hurley. You saw him get off the bus. You would have thought he was playing in the game. The way he got off with his coffee and the way he's strutting off the bus. You would have thought he was playing. It's about him. It's about him.
Don hates Danny Hurley with a passion.
Hate's a strong word.
Yeah, your face says it all. I agree with you. I don't think his coaching style is for the NBA. Like, I can't imagine him acting like that with NBA superstars. They'll have him fired faster than Jim Boeheim. But
I don't like how he beat Miami. That's all.
I think he stays in college for like what you said. I think it's what he does works great at UConn and works for the college game. And you're at the best job. Like, they're going to give you whatever you want as long as you want to stay there. And I feel like his family legacy of winning is all in college basketball. So, like, this is what they love. His dad was a coach. Brother was a player. Like, he's winning in college basketball. Like, this is what their family is about. So, I definitely think he's going to stay at UConn long term. I don't even think the NBA is in the discussion. Like, he has nothing to prove by jumping to the NBA. Like, he can stay and do this at UConn, win 3 more titles, and like he's going to be in the GOAT conversation of coaches. And I'm not even sure he would have to have worked any harder than any other coach in college basketball. It's a perfect situation.
He just needs to win 1 more, really. So let's switch. We'll go back to basketball, but let's throw some baseball in here since we're about 2 weeks into the season now. So outside of the Shohei Ohtani investigation, JT, pitching injuries to stars seems to have stolen the headlines. All right. Within a 48-hour period, you had your guy, Spencer Strider, Shane Bieber, and Yuri Perez, all go down with elbow injuries earlier this week. So this is on top of Garrett Cole landing on the injury list to start the season, I think also with an elbow. So is it a coincidence, or is there a reason for all of these major injuries to pitchers, in particular elbows?
This is so tough because you're in that situation where is it like just bad luck, everything's happening at one time, or is there something behind it? So I'm going to say it's not a coincidence. I think it's twofold. One, I think it's the pitch clock. And I know some people are like, oh, that you're being superstitious. I'm like, no, like pitchers and doctors say this all the time. The human arm is not meant to throw baseballs that fast at those arm angles. And now you're making them do it more often by speeding up the time they can take to recover between pitches. Like it's just bound to happen. I think that's the first thing. And then the other thing is I was actually reading this last week, and I think because there is such an emphasis on torque and power at the youth level, I think that's what's also starting to manifest itself. Dr. James Andrews, we know him. He was giving his comments on this, and he was basically saying like when like TJ Tommy John started showing up like 2000s. Really, it was really just like the majors were really seeing those injuries just because in high school guys weren't throwing like 90 miles an hour and all that torque at such a young age. So by the time they got to the pros, their arms and their ligaments got time to like develop and age. And like now he's saying that all the emphasis is on, who can throw the fastest, who can throw the hardest at the younger level. And he's like, that's where you see the most arm injuries. So I think this is just a byproduct of youth in college baseball and the minors, like putting so much emphasis on guys throwing faster and harder at such a young age. And like, I think you're going to start to see this more. Like he was saying, basically, like you should be throwing in the 80s in high school. And now guys are throwing, like, look at Strasburg. He was throwing 100 miles an hour in high school. Like, how long did he last? So I think it's just the pitch clock. And then also just, this is the product of guys throwing harder, younger. Like you're going to get hurt faster and more frequent.
Yeah. First, whether it is the pitch clock or not, I would have liked to have seen both the league and the union work together on this. They gave opposite opinions about the pitch clock. They seem to be pinned against each other once again, instead of trying to work together to figure this out. It was like, nope, your decision to have a pitch clock was terrible, and this is why there's injuries. And then the league said, all right, well, we're going to defend ourselves. We're going to go do this study and say that you're wrong. It's not the pitch clock. Instead of trying to figure out the reason and to try to prevent these injuries. So I think you're definitely right with the increased speed. I'm not going to go so far as to say it's the pitch clock. I just think what happened this year is it's happening to some of the stars, right? And that's why we're noticing it. When it happens to a middle reliever or a closer that doesn't make that much money, nobody seems to notice that.
Yeah, but when Cy Young aces are going down.
Exactly. So if it wasn't happening, would this even be coming up if it didn't happen to Garrett Cole and then the Bieber? So, but you said one thing, the increased pitch speed. It's got to be that part of it, right? We went from in 2008, average fastball, 90.5 miles an hour. JT, in 2022, it's now 93.9. It hit 94 last year.
When you think about it, we're talking average. That's insane.
Right. That is a huge, almost a 4 mile per hour increase over the span of just 15 years. That is a lot because it was already high at 90.5 miles an hour in 2008.
Can you imagine 15 years ago how many guys could consistently throw 95 or more? Like that's rare.
Right.
Now everyone's doing it.
Right. And like, could Greg Maddux even survive nowadays? I don't know if he ever topped 90 with his fastball. So MLB, now an MLB study was done, and this may have even been previous to this year, that shows that injuries are basically in lockstep with the velocity rise. So I don't think you can just ignore that information there. And then I think what you were saying goes back to the youth leagues. There's an extreme emphasis in the major league on spin rate, right? And the mechanics of that are just not natural
at all
for the body or the arm. And now we're throwing, meaning the youth are throwing curveballs much earlier. And some kids in high school may be having Tommy John even before they get to the minors. So I definitely think it's the pitch, the increase in pitch speed, the spin rate emphasis, and especially at the youth level, the emphasis on the spin rate, and now curveballs instead of before where it was, you have your cutter, your cutters, your fastballs type, and then an off speed.
Yeah. And you think about, like, I've read this other places where, like, they were like the Tommy John's ligament, like, doesn't mature until you're like 26. So like if these kids are, throwing all these crazy pitches and torque and spin rate at a young age, and like this thing's not going to mature until you're in your mid 20s, like it's bound to break down. And I think that's what's going on. Yeah. All right. So you ready to go into this? Oh, you called this the fast break? I hate this.
What? It's basketball. It's basketball.
I hate this, man.
It can't be the check down game. It's not football.
All right. So we're going to go into the fast break. This is basically a check down game. We're going to give you a statement. We're going to give you 2 responses to it. And
we're going to give you get it right. See,
we're going to give you a question. Go ahead, explain it since you love to explain it so much.
I did it again. I didn't write it down. He can't go off script because,
I can. You just don't.
We have to hand feed everything to him. So we're going to give you a question. We're going to give you multiple answers to it. We're going to choose the answer we feel best fits the question, like multiple choice. Now go and ask the question.
You're right. I wasn't going to say all that shit. All right. So the fast break. First one. Bronny James declaring for the NBA draft. Desperation or genius?
It's genius. It's genius. He keeps his eligibility while he's still in the portal. He gets a feel of where he may go in the draft. And it's genius because now his dad, LeBron James, gets to see exactly the temperature of the NBA on what they see and value in his son. And that will determine for LeBron what type of contract he wants to set up this summer. Is it going to be a 1-year deal? Is it going to be a 2-year deal? Because he may say, hey, you're nowhere near this draft board. Let me do a 2-year deal, 1 year with a player option for 2. Or if he sees, hey, you might be ready now. Let me wait to see where you go get drafted.
That's so sad. LeBron out here using his child as a contract pawn.
No, but also for Bronny.
I agree with that. That's 100% believable.
But also for Bronny, it's genius because, again, he keeps his eligibility. And think about this, JT. He entered the portal. We talked about it for 2 hours. He gets in the NBA draft or he puts his name in. We're talking about it on the show 3 days later. That's why it's genius. It's keeping his name in it all the way through the combine, all the way up until he wants to withdraw his name and keep his eligibility.
I agree with everything you said, but also he's putting pressure on the NBA to say no. Like, you're LeBron's son. Like, some team, like you said, is going to invest in his future just to get to your dad. So, like, who's going to be the team to say no to LeBron and his son? Like, it's genius. And if they do say no, he'll just take his ass back to college and LeBron will re-up and sign his 2-year deal with the player option in the second year, like you said.
Did you hear the rumor of where he may go?
It ain't the Orlando Magic. No.
Transfer. What school?
Don't say UM.
Duquesne.
Oh, God.
My hometown of Pittsburgh. No, the reason being the former coach of Duquesne who's retiring is the former high school coach of LeBron. And the coach that they hired to replace the retiring coach played ball with LeBron in high school.
Damn. So they're about to run this offense through Bronny. Smart move.
Hey, we're going to Pittsburgh. We're going to go watch some games.
We are not. All right. More to blame for LSU's, talking about women's college basketball, the LSU collapse. Angel Reese, Coach Kim Mulkey, or Haley Von Lith?
Whoa, Von Lith. She's getting
she's getting flamed online.
Yeah, wow. I mean, how does her name come up in this one? No one could cover Caitlin
They
Clark.
beat her so bad. You could call it a transfer. I think they kicked her off the team. It was like your services are no longer required, and she had to enter the portal.
That's harsh. Listen, I mean,
true.
Everyone struggled. Everyone struggled covering Caitlin Clark.
So is your answer not HBO?
No.
All right, cool.
It's Kim Mulkey. When you are the coach, and when there are so many question marks about the culture of the team, about why Angel Reese was out for 4 games, why you didn't repeat, why you didn't beat Iowa, why your team didn't seem to be all in as it should have been. When you have that many questions and you're the coach, you got to take the heat. You're the reason. You are more to blame. That's just the way it is. Like, it is just the way it is. Now, if this was the pros, I would say, yeah, maybe the star player has to take more of the blame. But this is still college. They're not paid, meaning the athletes, unless they have an NIL deal, but that has nothing to do with the team. And when you're the coach, Kim Mulkey, and you are known as the head coach, like, people know her. Like you said, she was probably getting more press than Dawn Staley, right? And Dawn Staley, go ahead, win a 3rd championship. Now, Kim Mulkey does have 2, but still, you get my point. So Kim Mulkey, she got to take the heat. She's more to blame.
Yeah, I agree. It's Kim Mulkey, and we're talking about their collapse. It started way before that loss to Iowa in the tournament. Like you said, the whole situation about Reese not being on the team. I feel like Kim Mulkey was the biggest distraction to LSU this year. The whole Reese situation, her not being a leader and keeping the team away through like negativity and adversity in the media throughout the year, like her controversial comments on certain topics, that story that came out like during the tournament about her. And then you want to talk about in the actual game they lost to Iowa, like not making any defensive adjustments. Like Haley Von Lith was getting lit up from the tip off of the game. Like Haley Von Lith is out there getting a 40-piece from Caitlin Clark. She was getting beat so bad, like she was just putting her hands up like, what do y'all want me to do? Like Von Lith was literally one of their worst defenders. And like, why are you keeping her on the best scorer of all time in the women's game? So her X's and O's in that moment, and then how she just handled everything throughout the season. The LSU collapse is on her, man. Like, gotta blame her. More exciting. So Juju Watkins, USC freshman, love her too. Her future in college or Caitlin Clark's future in the pros? Which one is more exciting?
Whew. This is one of those, again, I don't like answering because no matter how you answer.
Oh, this is a JT question, but he is the one to say it is. It's a good question.
It is not a JT question because it's actually a good question. I don't like to have to answer it because, again,
and you don't like to give me props, but go ahead.
No matter who you answer, it's like you're throwing shade to the other person, and that's not fair because they're both great players. But more exciting, I'm going to go Caitlin Clark in the pros, and this is why. We just had all that excitement in college, women's college basketball. I want to see if all of that, and I'm hoping it does, if Caitlin Clark, Angel Reese, maybe if Paige Beckers ends up coming out too, I want to see, like, that's what I'm excited about. That same excitement we felt going into the Elite Eight, the Final Four, the NCAA tournament, that I want to feel that in the pros. And that's why I'm more excited. And I'm still going to be excited for Juju Watkins to see what she does, because I think we can still feel that excitement in the women's game, and a lot of it will be because of her. But I want to feel that in the pros. I don't know if we've ever felt that since maybe that initial season or so when it was like Lisa Leslie, Rebecca Lobo, Tina Thompson,
like
Cynthia
Team
Cooper,
USA elite type of players.
Cheryl Swoops. Like when we saw all of them, that was amazing. But that was so long ago now that
it's like mid-90s.
There's been great players since, don't get me wrong. But I'm saying in terms of the excitement of the team, of the league, not just an individual player, but of the league. And I think maybe Caitlin Clark can do that and elevate the WNBA level to where kind of that excitement of the college game is right now.
Oh, I agree with you, but for different reasons, because Juju going to do her thing. Like USC going to win a championship with her. Like there's no doubt about it. It's going to happen. And I think Juju's got some Caitlin Clark in her game too. Like I think you're going to see her start shooting more like that as time goes on.
Give her the green light. Give her the green light.
But I agree with you. First of all, the main thing is I want to see if Caitlin Clark can get this shit done in the league, because I want to see if she is Steph Curry or is she going to be Jimmer Fredette. Like that's where she is going to be in the crossroads of her career going into the pros, because everybody in the WNBA is gunning for her. They're going to be roughing her up on defense. They're going to be hoping that she does not do as well as she did at Iowa. But I want to see if the game translates. Like just that anticipation makes it more exciting, because if it does work, then damn, we get to see Steph Curry in the WNBA too light it up. That's definitely more exciting. But I just want to see what type of player she's going to be. And for me, that's what's making it more exciting, because the anticipation is killing me, because she could fall flat on her face. Like she could be one of those people that just light it up in college and just she'd be on the bench in the pros. Right, it could be. So
listen, I'm going to go on record right now. She's not going to fall flat on her face.
I'm not saying I want her to. We don't know, because the WNBA. Before you go, let's just keep it real. The WNBA is different. Ain't like the NBA where it's like, well, she didn't do good her first year. We'll develop her and we'll bring her along slowly. WNBA, you a first round pick. If they can't 100% use you get cut out of the league because they don't have the roster spot. So ain't like Caitlin Clark got a whole season to figure this out. Like she really needs to come in and deliver. And like I feel bad for her because all the pressure is on her.
And what I'm saying is she will be able to do that. She'll live up to that. That's why I think it's more exciting, because I want to see the WNBA where it's like they're selling out. Playoff time comes, we're talking about it. Everyone's talking about it, just like we did the Final Four.
I get it. More excited because she's going to do it. I think it's more exciting because I think the anticipation of whether she'll succeed or fail.
It's both, but what I'm saying is I'm going to go on record and say she will succeed because she has the shot, JT. right? She can shoot it from far out. And I think the other thing that's being underestimated about her is she makes the players around her better.
Yeah,
like, let's be honest. Like, yes, Iowa had good players. Let's not knock the Iowa players. These are still Power 5.
They ain't going to the WNBA and being starters.
What I'm saying is they're still Power 5 caliber type of players that we recruited to Iowa. But also they're not as good as the South Carolina players.
No,
and Caitlin Clark did elevate some of them in the LSU game, in the UConn game. So I think that's where her game can translate to the WNBA.
For sure. She led the league. She led the nation in scoring, but I think she also led in like assists per game too. So, I mean, I think she's going to be good too. Real quick, NBA MVP, Shai Gilgeous, Luka Doncic, or your boy Jokic?
Listen, I'm going to go against Vegas here because Vegas says Jokic plus 440. He's the odds-on favorite right now. But I'm going to go Luka Doncic. He's almost averaging 34 a game, 9.2 rebounds, 9.8 assists. Jokic is only averaging 26 this year. How could it not be Luka right now? How could it not be? You watch this guy play? You watch him play?
You asking me? You asking them? Because I watch him play.
I'm asking everybody.
I have to watch him play because every time he puts up a damn triple-double, that's a loss for me in fantasy.
Exactly. He started against the Heat tonight, of course. 13 points in like less than 8 minutes. Are you kidding? Come on.
All right. I'll be real quick with this. I'm gonna repeat what I said way before the All-Star break, and I'm gonna go with the guy that you passed up on in the fantasy draft and you should have taken, Shai Gilgeous, man. And it's him.
I took Giannis. Come on now.
You wish you would have taken Shai. You took Shai, you would have won.
He wasn't going to help me win. He wouldn't have helped me win.
And just look at OKC's rise from like the tanking team that acquires picks to now like they're in the race for the 1 seed in the West. Like, and I feel like what they've done is one of the most not talked about parts of the NBA season. Like, they've literally transformed like winning overnight. And he's a big reason why. Like, he's definitely putting up an MVP type season. He's putting up the stats, but his true shooting has been phenomenal this year. So I'm gonna go with Shai. Oh, you'll love this. Last one. More annoying, Donovan Klingman or Danny Hurley?
By the way, before I answer it, real quick, is that Shai trade from the Lakers to OKC one of the most underrated trades ever that no one talks about? They just think the Thunder drafted this guy.
They threw this man away, and it's not like he didn't show flashes of him being good when he was on the Clippers. Like, the dude could play. Hey man, the NBA always chasing the people that are developed right at that moment. Terrible trade. But more annoying, your boy Klingman or Danny Hurley?
Listen, I'm going to go Danny Hurley because Klingman, I think, was only annoying because he
was beating the shit out of us last year.
He beat the Canes, and he was coming off the bench, and he played a lot of minutes last year.
You not knowing this guy was last year. He was beating us up on the glass. We couldn't do anything, and he wasn't even a starter. He was on the sideline doing the same annoying stuff. Putting his hands up as he was doing this year.
I can't be annoyed by him anymore because he played Zach Edey pretty tough. I know Edey went off for 38 points, but Klingman, I got to give him credit. Now, Danny Hurley, what I was going to say, is more annoying because I texted you this.
He thinks Danny Hurley's more annoying because he wish he could beat Danny. I mean, let's be real. That's what this is about. Like, if you could coach UConn and be on the court talking shit to 6'7" guys that you wish you could be like and play like them, and they pay you to do that and win championships, you would never shut up. We would never hear the end of it. So you really want to be Danny Hurley, but go ahead and tell us what you think.
Because, they were up over 20 points against Alabama with like a minute and a half. Alabama's got their subs. He has his subs out there, and he's complaining. He is riding the refs.
Yeah, it sounds like somebody I know.
Like it is Game 7 of the NBA Finals. Like, have some decency. Be a human. The refs are human.
You guys keep in mind who is delivering this message.
And then, all right, the other night, or whenever they played the title game, he punched himself because he was so upset about a call that was a good non-call by the refs. He He slapped himself in the face. And then he was halfway out on the court every time Purdue brought the ball down. There were 6 defenders. Get off the court. We're not here to watch you. We're here to watch Zach Edey. We're here to watch Newton. We're here to watch Crystal. We're not here to watch the Danny Hurley coaching show. Stay in the box. Can we go on to the next segment? Ain't nothing you need to add.
The answer is obviously Hurley.
There's nothing you can add.
Oh, it's obviously Hurley. For me, it's because he's not humble. Like, he is over the top every chance he gets. And the only thing I don't like is he's already getting, like, the GOAT treatment from wrestling media. It's like, okay, you won 2, but you won back-to-back in, like, probably some of the weakest men's tournament, like, competition-wise. And the refs are, like, letting him do his thing. Like, he was on the court more than Edey at one point, it seems, during the game. And, like, he's also trash-talking players. Like, can you imagine if, like, Dawn Staley did that? They would throw her ass out of the game. If you watch the South Carolina-Iowa game, she complained about a call. What'd they do? They gave her ass a warning really fast. They're like, hey, I feel like I was watching Remember the Titans. Get back in the box, coach, if you want to stay in this game. That's exactly what they did to Dawn Staley in that game, in the championship game. Meanwhile, Danny Hurley's out there, like you said, punching himself, talking to Edey. I thought he was giving him a pep talk. No, he's talking shit to him. Like, they acted like Hurley is Bill Belichick, and
Yeah,
I don't agree with it.
If they tee him up early, then
he probably still wouldn't shut up.
That stops everything. Well, at that point, then you tee him up again, and he's out the door. His assistants win the title, and it's like we could win without Danny Hurley.
Ain't nobody saying that. You just say that so they hope they'll hire your ass. It's not gonna happen. All right, so let's go through this quick, man. Let's get out of here.
All right, so forget about it, Fugazi. Everyone's favorite segment. We'll read a statement. If we agree with it, we're going to say forget about it. If we disagree with it, we don't think it's a good take, we're going to say Fugazi. All right, Paige Becker's career at UConn was a disappointment.
Forget about it, man. And I feel bad for her because I love Paige. And a lot of it's not her fault. I mean, you forget, like, she's basically hurt for 2 years. And I think just because the hype that she came in with, she's like one of the highest rated recruits of like a generation. And you go to UConn and we're expecting all these great things. And it's really 1.5 great years, maybe 2. I got to say it's a disappointment, but it's not because of her. It's because of the injuries.
Well, I'm going to say Fugazi because I've always said this. If injuries happen, I don't think you can be a bust if injuries happen because you can't control that. And so to say disappointment, I don't see an injury leading someone as a result of disappointment. You know, is it unfortunate? Sure. But a disappointment sounds like she let them down, and she didn't. Still got them to the Final Four, had multiple injuries. And let's face it, she ran into a generational type talent in Caitlin Clark. If not, she would have been in the finals. And then I'm not saying they would have beat South Carolina, but again, even if they lost to South Carolina, they would have faced a generational type team in South Carolina. So to say disappointment, I disagree. That's Fugazi. Stephon Diggs trade. Oh, we're talking some football now. All right. Stephon Diggs trade makes CJ Stroud a top 3 MVP candidate.
Oh, forget about it. He was an MVP candidate last year with 2 receivers that didn't even really break out on the NFL level yet. Now you give him Stephon Diggs? like why can't the Dolphins do shit like this? Like just make a Madden team around Tua, or like the Steelers, like put a Madden team around somebody. Like, this is insane. Diggs, Nico Collins, and Tank Dell, and then you add Joe Mixon to that. Absolutely, he's a top 3 MVP candidate.
All right. Well, one, did you forget? I mean, the Dolphins do kind of have a Madden.
We got one guy. We got Tyreek Hill, and then
we got Waddle and A-Chain. Come on.
All right, hey, look, we got Tyreek, and we got a charcuterie board of some good options around him.
Wow. All right. So I'm going to say Fugazi here because you said it. CJ Stroud was a top 3 MVP candidate last year. He don't need Stephon Diggs to make him a top 3. No. To make him a top 3 MVP candidate, he doesn't need Diggs for that. So that's why I say Fugazi. He's already a top 3 candidate. All right. The Cowboys will regret not reaching out to Derrick Henry during free agency.
Fugazi. I mean, I think he's a better fit in Baltimore anyway. I'm not so sure Derrick Henry would have made that much of a difference in Dallas like they're predicting, just because I seen him in a situation last year where it kind of had to be all about him at times, and I don't think it worked out well. In Baltimore, you know what you're getting. Like, they focusing on number 8. So that's just going to open up the running lanes for Derrick Henry. So I like that fit better. I don't think the Cowboys are bad. They can find another running back.
Oh, forget about it. I mean, did you see the way Derrick Henry ran in the last couple of games of the year there? And what do they have right now? And he would have been better than what they had last year with Tony
They
Pollard.
got your boy, Rico Dowdle.
Hey. Keep his name low key. He's gonna start for my dynasty team. But Derrick Henry would have been better than what they had last year, too. So of course they're gonna regret that. I mean, you're trying to win a Super Bowl, you need a guy like Derrick Henry at this point, if you're the Cowboys. All right, last one. The JJ McCarthy hype is just Zach Wilson repeated.
Oh, forget about it. They do this every year. Like, we know who the top 1 or 2 quarterbacks are. We've known since they've come out of high school, and then they find a way to throw this accountant in to boost him up to the top of the draft, and they haven't done anything to warrant that. This happens every year. So it's exactly what's going on right now. Forget about it.
I'm gonna say Fugazi just because the difference in college football career success, and that is why I'll say it's not repeated, because if you are going to hype up one of the two, I can see why you do it for JJ McCarthy. Now, you might be right. Might be the same result, right? Where he's taken too early, doesn't produce. You could be right there. I'm not going to disagree with you there. All I'm saying is it's not the Zach Wilson hype repeated, because at least JJ McCarthy, you can make an argument that, hey, he's had 2 years of success. He's beaten Ohio State. Let's give him some credit.
No, them big uglies and Blake Corum up front have beaten those teams.
Hey,
let's not get it twisted.
I understand that.
JJ McCarthy wasn't out there putting up. Like, if this was CJ
that.
Stroud, I would get it, because CJ Stroud dicing up Georgia in the semis for like 400 something yards. That's different. JJ McCarthy doing stretches, throwing for 180 and maybe a touchdown. Like, it ain't because of him. At least Zach Wilson put up numbers. The team was about him. Like, that's why they won at BYU.
I understand that. I'm saying you still got to give him – he still was the quarterback.
I ain't got to give him shit. He got a ring already.
Wow. All right, so to the fans and listeners out there, that is it for the show. Thank you, as always, for listening to us and tuning in on YouTube if you did that. And remember to please subscribe to us, JT and the Dawn All Sports Podcast, presented by Give Us a Shot Network. We can be found on all of the major podcast platforms, wherever you find all of your other favorite podcasts. And remember, if you like what we do, leave us a 5-star review. And JT,
if you don't like what we do,
leave us a 5-star review. And please follow us on social media. Our handle at JT and the Dawn. We can be found on Instagram, X, formerly Twitter, TikTok, and Facebook. So
you don't have to keep saying formerly Twitter. They know that already.
Okay, so I just say X?
Yes, just say X.
Okay. I'll remember for next show. Put that in the notes.
All
right, JT, great show, a lot of fun. And until the next episode, see ya.
Peace.